My guest today is the owner of UGQ Outdoor out of Jackson, which is probably one of the most highest quality outdoor companies when it comes to top quilts, down top quilts, under quilts, tarps, all kinds of backpacking gear for lightweight backpackers, carside campers. Chad, I don't think I've ever said your last name before. Houghton?
That's it.
Got it? Thanks for coming on, man.
You are so welcome.
It's nice to have you on my podcast. I've been on yours.
Yeah,
episode 1.
I don't want to talk about that. We're not even going to bring that up because I'm a little bitter about it.
Yeah.
Because what number am I? Like 4, 5, 6? I don't even know.
I had to be strategic, also, so me and my cousin, we did maybe 50 episodes of our podcast, Mike and the Beard.
That's right. You told me that.
And, we got to kick the wheels on it. But I always knew you'd be one of the first few. So welcome on.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to have you.
I'm sure.
I think a lot of people don't know. I know you always explain this, but especially the couple people might listen to this podcast, my couple friends or whatever, they probably don't know what underquilt or a top quilt is.
Or either. Let me give you one quick correction, though, because you did say some of the best quality. Just going to throw us out here.
I think when it comes to top quilts and underquilts, I think you have the highest quality.
There we go. That's all I was looking for.
And I actually I found you when I was doing heavy research into a top quilt, and it was you or Enlightened Equipment. And when I found out UGQ was in Jackson, my decision was made. And I do not regret that decision.
I was going to say, it just happened to be the right one.
I've been warm ever since on the trail. It's a great product.
I don't use our products. I'm not even going to open up that.
You're an overlander now. You have a 10 on top of your truck.
Yeah, but if you remember, I did launch the new comforter. So
yeah,
that's going in that's the overlanding setup right now.
But so a top quilt, I can hack away and try to explain it, but I feel like it'd probably be better coming from you. You're the expert.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far.
So it's a sleeping bag.
Yeah, so the main idea, so top quilts have been around for, 15, 20 years maybe. But the main idea is that, especially for, through hikers and hammock campers, when you're in a sleeping bag, when you're laying on it, you're compressing everything that you're laying on. And what this does is this essentially makes it to where you're carrying all this extra weight between material and insulation that's not really necessary, because in most applications you're using a separate bottom insulation, whether it's a pad or in a hammock system an underquilt. And so the idea is let's take the sleeping bag, let's strip it down, let's remove the entire back out of it, so a lot less materials, a lot less insulation, and basically give you more of like a 3/4 coverage. What we found was that not only did it save a lot of weight and make it a lot more packable, but there was a tremendous market for it, because there's so many people that were using traditional sleeping bags, mostly mummy bags, especially if they're hiking. They're trying to save as much weight as possible. So what we found is that most people that switched to quilts, it radically transformed their experience, because they're used to being like literally restricted in this mummy bag that they can't move around. And so quilts offer a lot more versatility. You can vent them really easily. Ours, have features that a lot of other quilts don't have, that again increase that versatility of it. And then an underquilt is basically just in a hammock application. So believe it or not, there are people out there that camp in hammocks, and it's actually quite a large industry now. In fact,
good reason.
The very first thing that we ever made as a company was an underquilt, which a lot of people don't know that. But an underquilt is essentially the bottom insulation in a hammock setup. So picture not your traditional netted hammock, but a nylon-based ultralight hammock that's gathered on both ends. So instead of it having a big bar at the end, for this flat lay, it's a gathered end. And again, there's a huge variety of hammocks on the market, but the underquilt is the insulation that goes underneath you. So in my professional opinion, a hammock system is by far the most thermally efficient system, because you're lofted and down all the way around you. So you've got your underquilt that's fully lofted and your top quilt that's fully lofted, versus when you're on a ground pad, every one of those pressure points where your hips and shoulders hit that ground pad, you're compressing it. And so it doesn't have the same insulating value that it will when you're not laying on it.
Right.
I don't know. Was that your question?
Oh, no, I think you completely nailed it.
Don't get me started.
I was kind of glazing over because obviously I sleep in a hammock, so I'm like, this is for the audience. But I can contest that it is basically a cocoon of comfort when you're in it, because you have the lofted down under the hammock, obviously not compressing it, because then it's not efficient at all. And then, you have that top quilt, which everybody, I know a lot of people who aren't into backpacking. They just think of like
they think of grandma's quilt.
Of a Coleman sleeping bag where they crawl into it. But anybody who's going in the backcountry, hiking, backpacking, they are using top quilts now because of what you said. It saves on weight. There's no sense in having padding behind you that you're going to compress.
Right.
So whether you're on a pad in a tent or in a hammock, you're using the top quilts.
And Mike's going to put some nice B-roll up of some UGQ quilts right now on
I haven't
screen.
done B-roll yet, but I might do that for you.
Dude, just do it. How long does it take? An extra 5 minutes? Come on. I'll send you all the pictures you need.
I just don't want you being picky. Like, I don't like that shot. You got to...
Dude, if you've seen my podcast or my Instagram account, I'm not picky when it comes. Now, when it comes to the website, because that's obviously our primary source of income, I'm very picky. But when it comes to that kind of stuff, and there's no products of ours that I'm going to be picky about.
I definitely want to get into the website too, because we're very similar with just being capable of, researching and getting things done. So I definitely want to touch on that. But for now, back to the hammocks. I know I've told you this story, but I've done a lot of backcountry trips and trips on my kayaks and slept in the woods. And I always thought waking up in the middle of the night was just part of camping, or sleeping lightly was just part of camping. But when I switched to a hammock on a biking trip, it was over. And it was just hammock camping ever since. And I sleep just like I do at my house. I fall asleep and I don't wake up until the morning, which is a huge difference from where I've been, for 2 years before that.
Well, I think that's most of my customers' experience before they get into that more premium version product is that, you can shop around on Amazon, whether it's for tents, hammocks, sleeping bags, all outdoor needs, and you can find the cheapest of all of those products out there.
Right.
And I think, for a lot of people, they'll go down that road, and what they'll experience is what most people experience is that it's not quite there, right? And so like when I camp, I try to mimic my sleep at home as closely as possible, because you never sleep better than, even in hotels, like you just never sleep better than you do in your own bed. And so bringing that comfort into the backcountry, it used to be that it was just not really doable because the technology wasn't there and the products weren't there, and most of these products were made in China, so they're not up to par to bring that comfort into the backcountry. And most people, you hear that term glamping, where people, if you're having a good night's sleep or you're ultra comfortable out when you're camping, then you're glamping. Like you've done you're either in a camper or you're in like some big tent with a air mattress or whatever. And nowadays that couldn't be any farther from the truth. There are a lot of really high-end manufacturers making some really high-end products, but the problem is that you're going to pay for them. If you want that luxury without the weight compromise or the packability compromise, then it's going to cost you.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's a hard battle.
I realized something when I was at HangCon and I was bringing up to people that were there. So we just got back from Florida last weekend from HangCon, which is my second year going. I went the first year with you to do some video work, and now I kind of just went.
You just came and disappeared the whole time. I never even saw you.
Just
hardly.
came. I came in the gate and said I was with UGQ, but
I got him in the doors, and then after that, he was gone.
But good people. I met friends there. My son met friends, and he asked to come back next year. And just a great community of people. But I was talking with people because last time I went, I was seeing people setups in their backyard, and they were just like, I sleep better in my hammock than my bed, or my wife doesn't like my snoring, so sometimes I sleep out there. It's better than the couch or whatever. And they had these setups. You would never hear somebody doing that in a tent. No. Or, I sleep better in my tent. I put it in my backyard.
Oh, I've got tons of customers that sleep in hammocks full time, year round. It's all they sleep. They have. In fact, there's several people I talked to at HangCon who have their house set to 50 degrees or colder, depending. Especially in the wintertime.
Right.
Summertime, not much you can do about it. But in the wintertime, they don't really turn their heat on, and they sleep in their hammocks in their house.
Wow.
With their insulation. And that's...
Just keep the pipes from freezing and save on the heat.
That's how they live.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. We live this life of going from heat to heat, from the car to the house. And, like my kids will be like that. I'm cold. It's like, it's the middle of winter. Put on a sweater.
Right.
You're in a T-shirt and shorts, Like we just don't want to...
The struggle is real.
And I also tell, too, when we get in the car to go somewhere, I'm like, do you realize if the car breaks down, you're going to die? Like we just don't, obviously a tow truck's probably not far away, but I just think about that when I leave the house. I want to have real shoes on, not flip-flops.
I'm the overpacker in my family, so I'll bring extra coats and shoes and blankets. And then inevitably, when we go somewhere as a family, I'm the only one that's prepared. So I end up wearing little to nothing by the end because everybody's cold and I'm dad. So what am I going to do? Not give them my extra clothes that I brought?
There has been once or twice where I've just let my son suffer and been like warm and been like, well, but usually, yeah.
But when mom's around, can't really get away with that.
Yeah, you're right. Well, there's been times when I really was like pressure. I'm like, at least grab a windbreaker or something. You know, like it's windy out there. It's going to cut right through that hoodie, you know, and then he pushes back really hard. I let him sweat for a little bit before I
now, Brittany,
shed some
my
layers
wife,
from him.
being with me now for the last 14 years, she's getting there. Now she's starting to understand the benefit of packing a little bit heavier, especially if you're in the car. Like, why not? Why not
Right.
carry some extra? Speaking of, can never go wrong having a Quillo in your car just for emergencies.
Why don't you tell us about
my shameless plug?
So, I mean, this is what I was going to get at with you because, like, it's so. The other day you were showing me the website, and so the first time I like really looked at it because you sent me the link and I've kind of glanced, but then I was looking at it on the desktop and I'm like, you know, you did a really good job on the website. Like, you just have kind of one of those minds that, you know, like you've kind of like innovated some interesting tech, like the Quillo. Like, people love that.
Yeah.
You know, and just because your mind is going that direction, that you're able to innovate. But you could probably do anything. Like, you're doing your website, you're doing all this other stuff. It's just like it's a certain wiring, you know. But it's interesting that you fell into this and then got hooked by the community. You've made friends and people, and like I feel like you're in that community probably forever.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
I've always known that my mind worked a little bit differently. You know, like I was that kid in school that would never do any homework, but I would get A's on all my tests because I would just retain the information just from being in the room.
Right.
And, you know, with all the jobs I ever had, it was the same thing where it's like, I started to, especially as I got into management and then owning my own companies, et cetera, I started to learn that there's very few people who can be shown something once and never again.
Right.
But to me, I always just thought it was normal. Like, this is just normal the way that it's supposed to be. And, you know, as far as the creative side of it, like that's my favorite aspect of running this particular business, is that it gives me unlimited creative freedom, whether it's through the website or developing new products.
Something always to be excited about.
Always.
Something's always getting built.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Or, you know, the connections and the partnerships and collaborations that we get to do, like some amazing big names in the industry that I've got to work with personally or go on trips with.
Right.
All that kind of stuff, dude, is it. But the biggest aspect for me of like my job is the fact that I get to have my family there with me at the shop, which is incredible. I don't know if you saw my laser tag video today.
Yeah, I did. That was
pretty epic.
cute. Yeah.
Yeah. Except I did injure myself.
I would say what you were doing was cheating, like rolling things across. Like, you knew how to use the shop materials and the shop like rolling devices.
Yeah, I did have kids yelling
advantage
at me that I was cheating. So
and covering up your
how
chest
else was
plate.
I gonna win?
I mean, you always just have them play ping pong and let them have it.
Yeah, well,
But I've seen, like, you know, there's always this pattern too of like I had Steve Carroll on here, and he does the Great Lakes Yurt Company, and I remember even talking to him a long time ago. He's just kind of, I fell in this community. That's great, because anybody who's buying a yurt is going to be a similar mindset. It's just like when you go to Hang Out, everybody's a hanger. You know, everybody there kind of clicks in a certain way.
well, not everyone. I wasn't in a hammock.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a certain community aspect that I think is also like pulls you in to because you know you're serving that community, and then you care about them because you start meeting people. So, like, you know, he had a similar thing where he would go and camp out with these people and hang out with them while he set up their yurts, you know, and realize, like, this is the community I want to serve, you know. And then he goes to the festivals, but you know, you're doing the same thing. You're doing podcasts, you're going to these events, you're meeting more and more people. So it's like that almost like hooks you just as much as, because you can do creative work anywhere.
Oh,
But it's when you have like a community that you're like involved with, that you know you're, you know, serving that kind of.
well, and for us, you know, it extends beyond that because of our particular industry. We're in the hammock community, the backpacking community, the overlanding community, the hunting community, you know, so we're getting to really expand ourselves into a lot of other areas. And one of the most recent podcasts that me and Brittany did, one of the things that we talked about on there is how, you know, because we were talking about introvertedness versus extrovertedness, and, you know, how her and I are so polar opposite. And, you know, for me, going to events, very little of it is about selling product. Like, of course, I want to sell product and make a name for ourselves, but it's mostly about like the friendships and connections. Like, if you remember at HankCon, I wasn't even in our booth once. Like I literally didn't even work in our booth once. We had brought our mobile podcast studio. We did podcasts the whole time. And then the rest of the time we were walking around networking, making those connections, doing the stuff with Dave, Canterbury, all that stuff for me is by far the most exciting aspect of the business, and of course then for years, like I ran the business, and Brittany was the stay-at-home mom, homeschooling the kids. And when we moved into this new shop, it opened up the door for me to bring her and the kids into the shop. And now that opened up the door for Brittany to be a part of the company, because it was kind of always like my thing, and she was in the shadows, and we would go to events, and she kind of like did her thing while I was doing the work thing. And now that she runs the podcast with me, and she does all the customer emails, and we do like all of our little videos, for her to go to events and have people recognize her and like come up to her and be like, oh my God, I loved your videos, or I love that one podcast you did, or whatever the case is, like seeing how much that lights her up, brings me so much excitement. So, and then the business experience that the kids get, and like understanding when dad's working late hours, like to them now they see it, they understand it. And when I'm working late hours, I don't have to take away from my family. I'm with them all day.
Right.
You know what I mean? And when I'm working from home, I'm usually doing it in bed, so they come pile in on the bed with me, and we all watch whatever show while I'm sitting there working. And it's like, it really is a family affair from top to bottom, and that's by far the most rewarding aspect of it for me.
It seems like you definitely love that shift into having the kids there, and you built that room for them and got them all involved. And I like that you got Brittany on the podcast as the kind of co-host with you. And
my personality is too dry to run it by myself, Mike.
Right.
I needed Brittany to spice it up.
Keep you in check. She managed you pretty well. I'll tell you
she does
that.
a great job.
But it's also even, the number one thing, like you say, talking about networking at HangCon. I think about that a lot as a business owner. As a business owner, you don't want to be the one that's doing admin tasks and doing the stuff that anybody could be doing. And a lot of people have like resistance on letting those things go because they don't feel like somebody else is going to do them as good. But the biggest thing you could be doing as a business owner is doing the face-to-face networking or content with you in the video, which is probably the second best thing next to in-person.
Yep.
Because if you have a good chat with somebody and they get connected with you, like you have a loyal fan of your business now. And that can have exponential growth. They're going to recommend you to 2-3 people who are going to recommend you to 2, like it's just massive. I
mean, I've watched in the 10 plus years I've been a part of this business, I've watched so many companies go out of business because the owners they weren't good delegators. And so they ended up just taking on everything to themselves and get burnt out. And through that process, they're just like, they're burnt out to the point to where they're just done with it.
Yeah.
And, through watching that and, running this business for as long as I have, it's one of those things where I'm a hyper perfectionist, especially when it comes to the production floor and the operation. And, I built all the processes. Like that was what I focused on the most. Delegating that out by far has been the hardest thing for me to do. But, in 2024, we kind of realized like, if we're going to have any chance at really hitting like next level growth, I've got to get things off my plates. And I listen to a lot of like CEOs and stuff on YouTube, and a common theme amongst all of them is that time is your most valuable thing as the owner of a business. Time, not anything else. Like that's the most important aspect. And as the owner, the only thing you should spend your time doing is money making activities. Period. If what you're doing with your time is not bringing money into the business, you've gone wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like no business owners that I know of that are small business owners think that way. They're so focused on, well, I got to fix this and I got to clean that bathroom and I got to, you know what I mean? It's like all these things. And it's like, dude, you have staff. Like, pull them off their task for 5 minutes to get that done.
It's nice to know every aspect of your business. So it's like, learn it, maybe even perfect it, get to the point where you're happy with where you are, and then make the systems or simplify it as best you can based off all the knowledge you've acquired and lessons you've learned. Pass it on to the next thing. And if you keep doing that and can pass it on, that's the only way to scale.
In the last 6 months that I've really stepped back from the daily operation and kind of shifted my role more into like the big picture stuff, dude, it's night and day different. Like what we're doing as a company and my own mental health and like the quality time with my family, like all these things have improved tremendously since doing that. There was a guy at HangCon that, because there's several videos that have come out where, a lot of them were going around to different vendors, and, there was several of them that I was doing like my spiel and whatever. Well, one of the guys came over and I wasn't around. I was in the back doing podcast. And so Alyssa decided to step up and give them a tour of the booth and talk about the Quillo and the other products. Dude, she nailed it. Like, she had all the information perfect.
Oh, in the video.
In the video.
Oh,
like,
that's great.
she got it perfect. And when I saw the video, I'm like, holy crap. And Alyssa's somebody that I've delegated pretty much the entire production floor to, for the most part.
Yeah, she's great.
And the fact that she was able to retain all the information, and this information has just come from her listening to me over the last year and a half, and all the conversations I've had and the events and so on. It's just information that she's retained. And like I was telling you earlier, like that's rare to find in people. And when you find them as a business owner, you hold on to them as tightly as you can.
Yeah,
period.
Treat them good. Yeah, and that's your stepsister, Alyssa is.
Yeah,
yeah, and that's one thing I like about your company. As hard as it is, you're one of the few manufacturers of backpacking gear I know that is producing all your stuff right here, like in Jackson, Michigan, you know, and it's all U.S. employees making it. And I mean, that comes with its own challenges because, I mean, you're paying 3-4 times probably what other people are paying for, but you're also, like you said, controlling that quality and making sure that it's high quality products leaving the warehouse.
I mean, we could definitely manufacture overseas, whether it's China or Cambodia or Taiwan or whatever. There's no shortage of places that would be glad to manufacture your products for you. And they even have a lot of processes in place to where they'll fly you out. They'll let you, be there for the first run. And then you can have a quality person that's there that can monitor the operation while you're not there. And so there are a lot of ways to do that. But, for me, manufacturing in the U.S. goes far beyond like the bucks that I can save and the bucks that I can pass on to the end user. It's like there's no shortage of Chinese products. And if you're looking to save a nickel, go buy them.
Yeah.
If you're wanting something that's handcrafted, handmade specifically for you, it's going to cost. Like you can't get that anywhere with it not costing you. And the value that brings not only to you as the end user getting a high quality, high end product, but you're pouring into our economy. You're pouring into our local communities. You're pouring into our state, into our overall national economy. And that's so huge because we just went through a major pandemic where our economy went through some serious fluctuations. And towards the tail end of that pandemic, small businesses were the ones that took the biggest hit. And really struggled. Now, the outdoor industry exploded at the beginning of the pandemic. I mean, that was the year 1 and 2 of the pandemic were our 2 largest years by a long shot. And that was true for everyone in the outdoor industry.
And anybody with online stores blew up too.
Exactly.
Like just crazy.
But by year 3.5, things started to dramatically change as the stimulus checks slowed down and as reality started setting in for people and all. And then we started realizing like, holy cow, there's been so many businesses that haven't survived. And it's like, now everybody's holding on to their wallets so tightly because they're not sure what's going to happen. Like that ripple effect affected so much. And so, the emphasis on rebuilding small business in America is huge for us that own small businesses because it's everything for us. Like it's our livelihood and it's our employees' livelihood. And keeping manufacturing here is as challenging as it is. You'll never see me do it any other way.
I mean, there's so many unseen benefits. Like, you're hiring people, they're driving to your shop in Jackson, they're supporting a local restaurant because they're getting lunches there, or they're going to dinner. Like, there's so many little things, and then that's helping those businesses keep going. So all the money you're making is staying right there, versus being shipped off. So, and and the other side of that is having one owner that is dealing with manufacturing overseas, where it's just like they're profiting and then paying, that's going to another. Because a lot of these companies, big companies, they siphon a lot of money out of the community, and small businesses typically employ more people than these large corporations and large companies. So they're very important, and I definitely respect you for that. Like,
and
small businesses.
From talking to all of my competitors, because one of the things that, again, your people wouldn't know, but one of the things that I've emphasized a lot in recent years, or let's just say the last year and a half, because again, I'm not going to get into the story of me being gone, but in the last year and a half, I've emphasized heavily not being competitors with other small businesses here in the U.S. That are my direct competitors. In fact, I've had all of them on my podcast, become friends with them all, and now we support each other. But that wasn't the case, a few years ago, where it was like all this animosity, and it's like, we're not each other's enemy. There's enough market space for all of us if we look at the real enemy. And we do what we need to do as a community. When I say community, look at us as a U.S. based group and go, this is our community, and we're not going to let anybody infiltrate that community. And so instead of looking at my direct competitor and going, hey, what are you doing over there?
Right.
Invite him in and go, what can we do to strategize to go against the real enemy?
Yeah. And with that podcast, you're making like a connective tissue that can like connect all those businesses that you can actually reach out and talk to the owners.
Dude, I've had,
and then the people are going to be like, well, where is that? You know, I don't know if I can say the names or not, but like,
I don't care.
Where is the light equipment, or where is this company? Like, they're not on the podcast. Who's the owner of that company? And that's kind of like where we're headed to. You know, as a marketer, I look at it is like, that's what gives local businesses the edge. Is there's a face, there's a story.
Yep.
This is how I got the company. This is what I care about. This is my wife. She's on the podcast with me. Like that transparency, that connectivity that people will develop with your company is so massive. Whereas if you're just a company owned by a bunch of investors and you hired a marketing company and you hired
the customer service is garbage.
Just like very mechanical all the way through, and you're getting manufactured overseas and there's no story, those companies are going to fall off because people are just more and more looking for, you know, that real connection with real people and real stories. You know, so I love the approach of, instead of going against those people or feeling the ego get involved and think like, oh, how you know,
I'm confident in my product.
Closer.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not insecure about what we're doing at all. And, you know, that's why for me, it's like, it makes no difference whether you're my direct competitor or people that are, I can't tell you how many people in the cottage vendor space in the outdoor community that I am currently helping grow their own businesses, even making the exact products as mine. Because it's like, at the end of the day, if they come out with something better than me, that's going to
make you better.
That's going to make me better, right? Because my philosophy is that I'm not just going to make one thing and hope it works. Like, I want to innovate. I want to create. I want to engineer. I want to build new products. I want to do things that no one's ever done. So if somebody comes to the table and I help them grow to a certain point, and then they're like, they build something that's way better than mine, that's going to make me go back to the drawing board and beat them. And then we're going to have this fun competition going back and forth on who can create the better products. You know, Elon Musk talks about this, and he's made this statement boldly: patents are for the weak. And his whole philosophy is that, and again, I may not 100% agree with it to the same degree as him, because he's Elon Musk and he's got, you know, billions and I don't, but
he might be moving at even more RPMs than you or I.
His philosophy was basically that if somebody builds something similar to his and it's better, then that's going to make him continue to innovate. And his idea behind patents is that if you're so afraid that somebody's going to copy your product, that means you're not a true innovator. That means you're not an inventor. That means you're not somebody that can think outside of the box. You got lucky once, and you're trying to protect that idea with everything that you have.
Right.
And
whereas like a true innovator or thinker is going to be always thinking about the next thing.
Right.
So it's like, make it move on. And so it's like me, I couldn't imagine just being like, I'm putting my flag here and this is all I'm going to do. I made a product. I'm making money. I'm done.
Right.
Like
but a lot of people do exactly that.
You know,
if you look at Shark Tank, they come in there with one product, one idea. And the first thing they ask them, do you have a patent on it?
Yeah.
Now, the people that came in there with multiple products or multiple, or their company does a very large variety of things, you'll never hear them ask about patents. It's really interesting when you think about it, because
if the guest has already had multiples,
because they see that person as, well, you can innovate, you can create, you can adapt, versus somebody that's like, we got one idea,
we have a moat around us and people can't touch us,
right?
You know? Which have you looked into this deep seek? Yeah, have you been?
No.
So you know,
chances are good that anything you ask me outside of my company and family, I don't know. So
well, it's like a similar thing where you know, in the U.S., the AI industry, which I know you use AI, we both do. Anybody would. If you're in business, you should definitely be using it. But you know, so we kind of thought we had a motor on it, you know, and then we're like, and then Trump comes out, he's like, I'm investing all this money in the Stargate. I love his names; they're great.
Yeah.
You know, Stargate project, and it's all these people, and so right after that, the next day, China releases their new AI, DeepSeek, which was made with like 5% of the money that OpenAI was made with, and uses like 20% of the computing power. So basically now, like, we thought we needed, like, it was like AI, NVIDIA chips. We need both. That's how we grow AI, right? Now we're like, do we really even need NVIDIA chips? You can download DeepSeek on a Mac laptop and run it. So it basically destroyed that moat.
Yeah.
And now is pushing innovation in the U.S. for AI because it's like they just took a huge leap. You know, like I dove in enough to understand like just how big of a leap it was. And
Yeah,
it was
you're the guy that I
massive.
call for newest information regarding technology.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but it definitely relates because like I said, it just completely smashed where we thought we were heading with AI, and now it's like, you know, like Nvidia's stock went down like 30% or something, 20%.
nice. Yeah, I use AI for responding to emails when I'm sounding disgruntled,
Tired.
or simply for like autocorrect purposes. If I'm like typing something up and just it automatically, types up the correct thing, or for like video stuff or editing stuff, marketing, whatever, like I'll use AI. But I still know so little when it comes to AI. Every time you're like, dude, have you tried this thing and this thing and this thing? And I'm like, dude, I've never heard of anything that you're even talking about, but that's why I rely on you.
Frequently asked questions is done. You just program your AI to respond to your emails for any of those. If it's any of these subjects,
I wish it was that
respond
easy,
automatically for me, and then boom.
We're too custom for that.
Well, you can always hire Michigan Media House come help you out.
I'm sure I can.
But yeah, dude, I definitely respect like the what was I going to say too about the whole I was going to say, going to HankCon, like there's so many businesses where you don't really get hung up on the digital marketing in your website. You kind of picked up the ball. Oh, something else I have to learn, sure. And then I'm sure you grind and kind of like when I have to take a deep dive into something, I kind of, it's hard for my wife to even talk to me because I'll be like in that space. Like if I'm on my website, I'm in that space for like 5 days.
I have a strong zone.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, babe, I'm in the zone, but I'll make it up to you. Because I'm in that. I'm just obsessing over it. I'm waking up thinking about it.
200 hours into that website in like 2.5 weeks. So trust me, you're preaching to the choir.
But going to HankCon last year is actually what kind of inspired me to start going the digital marketing route, because so many people, I'd be out there at the fire at 1 a.m. talking to some of those vendors, and like
giving my hammock setup away. And
yeah, we'll have to tell that story in a second. But they'd just be, because they're sewers, and then they're backpackers, and then they made a better mousetrap. They made a better product than what they had on the trail, and this is a business. But they're not. They're the opposite of digital,
Right.
And digital marketing.
And they're very weary of paying somebody that they don't know to work on their website.
So it's like at that point I was just video, but I've also seen that before with clients where I've given them a video, and then I look at their website and they don't have a clear call to action. They don't have a clear way to guide people that come to the websites. And I was just, so I've seen the need repeatedly. And then that time was kind of like the nail in the coffin that got me thinking about, well, why not? I've built so many websites for my own business over the years, rebranded myself. Why not slap these together for businesses and actually deliver like a good ROI, with a video just being the cherry on top. Yeah. Kind of thing.
I mean, honestly, for most of them, just building a website goes a long way.
Oh, yeah.
It really does. Because I remember our first few websites were, good Lord, they were atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
And with us, especially with companies at HankCon, now we're the most custom, probably quilt or sleeping bag manufacturer in the world. I don't know anybody that's more custom than we are. And all of those custom options are available on our website, but we can do far above and beyond, even what's on our website. Yeah. Now, a lot of these guys are all running, doing custom work too. And that's the biggest challenge for them is they don't know how to set up their websites to do custom ordering where somebody can select, and how to educate them on why they would choose one option over the other. My quick fix was make a video that goes over all the options and why you would want one over the other. And I was like, it doesn't always have to be about making your website. There's other ways to use resources and tools to your advantage. And having a bunch of videos that cover most of the questions that I can just send to a customer, be like, watch this video. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, perfect. That answered all my questions. You know what I mean? That saved me so much time on the back end for customer emails. And, that was something I was talking with Corey with Majestic Hammock about today. Dude, you're wasting so much time on emails right now. So much time.
Yeah.
All the time that
he has his colors.
Having 14,
but they're kind of hidden, but his colors are there.
Having 14-week lead times, you don't have time to be answering emails. You need to be grinding on making hammocks all day long. But you're doing.
And unless you're going to do something different with 14-week lead times, up the price. Because if you're making, unless you're going to come up with a way where you can do emails less and make more. If you're not going to do that, then you got to up your price, because that's just there's a high.
You end up upside down on your time, and
especially like you said with a lot of customizations, there's that issue of decision fatigue where somebody comes in there and then if they don't have clear direction, they just get out, which is why like other brands like Lighting Equipment or something, they just have their 4 or 5 colors, 2 to 3 different temp rating, whatever, it's like very simple, 3 or 4 questions. You got to, it's already on the racks made in mass production. Whereas you guys have like 100 different prints that people can get on the outside of their quilts,
Yeah. I mean, just
if you don't guide them through and think about the user interface, the user experience and education through that, then they just drop off because of, but also backpackers, more than anybody, I think people get into backpacking and like really fine tuning their kits, or maybe even overlanders.
Don't
or
mind me.
That'd be my one edit. But even overlanders or carside campers, they're typically getting pretty meticulous.
Edit that out.
Pretty meticulous with their stuff. Have you noticed in my thumbnails I've been like using Adobe AI, like that thing where you can drag it, and I just replaced the beer cans with like something relevant.
No, yeah, I know. You showed me.
Yeah, Tony was on a button, freaking nuclear button.
That's funny.
But also back to that community too, they more than anybody will appreciate the fact that you're made in the U.S.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing too.
Yeah.
Some other communities might not so much. Like if you're making ladles and making stuff for the kitchen, they don't care. Yeah. Whatever. But people that are backpackers are typically more conscious of.
They are
local businesses,
in one
footprints.
sense, but it goes back to that same thing where a lot of them will preach made in USA. Very few of them fulfill it to the degree that they preach it. And it's always going to be a struggle when you're dealing with made in U.S. products. Like, not everything I buy is made in U.S. obviously,
right.
And to take it to that extreme, I equate it to somebody going to the extreme of going like dairy free, sugar free, gluten free, and sugar free all at the same time.
Right.
Like, you're just not going to be able to cover all of the basis when it comes to buying made in the USA, and when it comes to something that you really want. It's just tricky because again, you're never going to get the price that you want. And, I know certain manufacturers, they just run sales all the time. They mark their prices up and then run sales just to try to make it look like they're cheaper. You know what I mean? Even though that's actually their bottom line that they need to make. Yeah. You know what I mean? Before a sale, that's just ways that small businesses have tried to compete with China. Now, we don't do that, but there are those that do.
Right. I know. I mean, psychologically, there's a store I manage for a client, and I mean, we always just have it on there like, oh, originally 120, now 1997. You don't want to do 19, or now 97.
I was gonna say that was a big jump. I'm buying.
Yeah, now 99.97. You don't want to do 99.99. You want to do 99.97. Yes. Like, there's weird psychological things when you.
Well, if you look at all my products, they're 99.95. So I went even one step further, Mike.
Because you probably dove deeper into it. I just went to the first article that explained like good pricing strategies.
Honestly,
you probably read like 2 or 3.
My pricing is based on like, yes, that little piece of it I did from market research, but our pricing truly is just based on what we need to make on our products, and we don't mark anything up to like be deceptive. And there are endless amounts of resources that will give you ways to be. They won't outright say it, but deceptive with your marketing. And it sucks because it's like when there's so many companies that will do it, and then you're like digging your heels in and going, no, I'm just going to be authentic. It's not competitive. Like, you're really not. And so you have to, which is why I started doing my own content, because I want to control my own narrative. I don't want people painting a picture of my company based on their own opinions. I want them understanding exactly who we are, why we make the choices that we do. And I talk about all this stuff openly on our podcast, on videos, to customers. Like, it doesn't matter, because I'm not worried about any of my competitors, and I'm not worried about, like, if things get tight, financially, and our marketing's not working, then again, it's not always about taking the easiest way out and, in my opinion, making those unethical choices. It's about working harder and digging deeper and figuring out how you can keep your morals and your integrity intact while still trying to compete with everyone else who's not. And it's a lot harder road to go down, but in my experience, it's 10 times more rewarding, because when you're able to make a successful business around your morals and integrity and not compromise those, because it's so easy to see what everyone else is doing, or you look at their social media and like, oh man, they're crushing it. How am I going to keep up? And then it's easy to get in that headspace of, making those decisions that inevitably lead to you feeling crappy about yourself. And if you start feeling crappy about yourself, that's going to impact so much of your daily life. Like, we don't understand that if you tell yourself you're going to wake up at 5 a.m. and then you don't wake up until 7,
Let yourself down right
what
away.
that does to you psychologically for the rest of your day. And then you let that snowball into the next day and so on and so on. Dude, it has massive, I'm talking massive implications. I mean, there's a lot of studies around this. And for me, it's like, life is short. If I can't live this short life while keeping my integrity intact, like, it's just not worth it. Like, the business isn't worth it. What I'm teaching my kids, like, if they see me and they learn as they get older that I took shortcuts and then I, made these bad business deals because I was trying to earn a quick buck or whatever the case is, like, dude, it'll literally make me start tearing up thinking about even remotely going down that road, because it's not who I am and not what I want. But it is a harder road. Yeah. It's a harder road, but it's one I'm willing to go down.
What's a hard road for anybody who's trying to start a business? It's a grind with faith. You kind of see it. It's a possibility, and you just keep trucking. And then sometimes you end up where you didn't expect to end up at. Yeah. But back to what you're saying about, like, not starting your day with, like, letting yourself down. There's a book like Make Your Bed or something. It was like a drill sergeant that made it. Yeah. Like, that's the importance of, like, you make I don't make my bed in the morning. I mean, Marlo's usually in it, in my defense, but yeah, I work out every morning. So I start every day with success. I got up and I did what I said I was going to do. And then you build on that and you keep building, but you don't want to let yourself down or even compromise on, like, you brought your family in there. And it's like, because you're holding your certain values. Like, my family's, how can I make this work? And you thought about it creatively. Like, I'll build a room for the kids. I'll knock down this wall. The kids can hang out in here. I'll build an office for Brittany, get her on the podcast. Like, now you're finding that synergy. Yeah. And sometimes that's more important than any kind of financial gain. Because you could have took that money for the construction and for this and that and been like, I got to run ads like this person, or I got to do this, or I should go over and get manufacturing over here. Like, you just get stressed. I'm sure you've had times where you've been stressed money-wise, but you've held true to...
Is there anyone that's not?
Yeah. And it's especially when it's right there and you already know, I can call so-and-so. He's already got a contact. Right. He gave me his pricing. I'm sure people have told you what they pay for a quilt or something. Like, it's right there at your grasp. You can just go and grab it anytime you want. But
I've reached out to Chinese manufacturers just to see what I'm missing out on in that sense. And it's absurd, dude. It's absurd how inexpensive they can manufacture one of my quilts.
And in their defense, it's quality. It's not like you're I mean, I don't think you're sacrificing a whole lot on the quality, but it's more about the morals.
You may not be sacrificing any, because if I can set the criteria, stitch length and how long the lock stitches need to be and exactly the fabrics that are being used, and having my parameters set on every piece of this product, and they can produce something within that tolerance, quality is not the issue. Right. Like, I could get my products made overseas and have the same quality. But it literally would be devastating to my whole brand, because everything that we've put out there as far as our brand is concerned is all made in the USA. Yeah. And obviously it would be a really bad move for us to do as a company now, but certainly the option is there. And had we not put ourselves so much in the spotlight in terms of our social media and content, et cetera, right. That would have been a lot easier. And I like to surround myself with a lot of accountability, because at the end of the day, humans have proven to not do well in a lack of accountability environments. And again, lots of studies and statistics around this. When you can put yourself in a position where you're welcoming accountability because you truly want to be a better person, and a better business owner, better father, husband, et cetera, the amount of doors that open up. I mean, I've had so many business relationships that I've secured in the last just year and a half alone, that people wanted to do business with me just because of my integrity. And when I sit down and have those business meetings, and I make it clear, like, look, I'm not doing anything that's going to compromise my relationship with my family. Right. If you're asking, if you're wanting me to work nights and weekends to, make this product for your website or whatever, it's not going to happen. Right. I'll make it when there's time to make it during the work day. And other than that, it's just not happening. So, that's, you learn that it's rare in business. And when people see it, it's almost intoxicating. They're like, now I want to work with you even more, because you have integrity. Like, that doesn't exist. Yeah. You have morals. You care about your family. Right. What? This is weird. And for me, it's like, I wish that it wasn't so weird for men to have integrity. I wish it wasn't so weird for business owners in general to have integrity. But like I said, when you find them, it's like those are the people you want to do business with.
And we all kind of exist not only in business but as individuals, like in bubbles. So I think like in the world we live in, it makes it easier for people in their bubble to be like, oh, well, I'm making a business, and the point of a business is money. I can go here and I can make this, but like I feel like back in the day it was more like networking, where it's like obviously family is something everybody would care about. Someone you meet with somebody, you go golfing or you have a beer at the back in the day you used to hang out at coffee shops. So all the men would hang out at coffee shops and talk, and like that's typically we talk about this at Hincon, like you don't want to do business with somebody you barely know, but when you sit around a fire and you have beer and drinks and fuck around with each other and laughing or whatever, like now you're like, okay, I know this like person on the inside, like I know this person way more connected now than I was. So now it's easier to get in a business relationship and also that integrity thing is huge. Like I met a lot of people that were just like almost to a fault, where they would just they would lose tons of money just because they're like, I told you that. Like when I bought my Prius, I jumped on it right away and I made an offer and he said yes, and he's like, I got bombarded by people offering me $2,000 more, but I told you could have it. You're the first one that messaged me and did it. It's like you respect that. You're like, that's how shit should work.
And you would do business with him again because of that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a huge sell. And I think the biggest thing I'm always telling people, like there's a company I'm working with now that's like Real Green Lawns and like fertilizing lawns and stuff. And I was telling him, like, dude, if you really want to make business, I'd go door knocking, because that's face to face.
It's a lost
art.
And
And he's a very magnetic guy. Like you talk about on the phone, he's just like, you can just bro down with him. Like he's very knowledgeable too. So it's like, this would be like you door knocking. I bet you, even though you don't,
dude,
like,
I have
most of
door
the people are going to be buying hammocks. You probably sell some hammocks every day, just door knocking, because people get connected, and you might bump into that one person who's a camper. It's like, I was actually just,
Well, that's also why.
But that's that face to face, from the power of face to face communication.
From the beginning, I told you when I started my podcast, I'm only doing in-person interviews. I'm not doing any digital ones because you lose so much of that value when it's not face to face. And same with all of my YouTube relationships. Right. I've told all of them from the beginning, like, I'm not paying you sponsorship money. I'm not paying anybody any sponsorship money to pay them $5,000 to talk 2 minutes about my product. Like, it's not going to happen. What I will do though is I will fly you here and we'll do an in-person podcast, and then we'll go on a trip together and we'll have dinner and you'll meet my family. And once that whole weekend evolves into a strong friendship and a strong relationship, you can have somebody that's got 500,000, 1 million, 2 million, 5 million subscribers on YouTube, and they're getting reached out to by thousands of companies and getting sent boatloads of free stuff, like crazy amounts of stuff. I can call them up and be like, hey man, we're struggling a little bit this month. Oh dude, what do you need? I'll make a video right now. Right. No cost, just because they came and broke bread with me,
feel
and
invested in your success.
It's the relationship, it's the connection. And any business owners out there that don't understand the value of networking and building those relationships, you're gonna be on a much harder path than the ones that do understand it, because it's I've worked for people that didn't understand that value, and they were all about the money, and they lost their businesses. Who I'm talking about. I'm not going to say it out loud, but they lost their business because they were so concerned about chasing the dollar that they lost the personal relationship side of business.
And I'm sure me and you both follow a lot of influencers online that are business influencers and gurus, and they kind of miss on that subject a lot. Yeah. Where it's, so if you just dive into, marketing and networking and stuff like that on the internet, I was in this spot where I'm a video guy. I'll make a great fucking campaign video and then I'll put it out there, and then I'll just get leads, and that didn't work nowhere near as well as when I just started showing up in the communities that I wanted to serve, and started showing up.
My experience with life
introducing
insurance.
myself and then giving them faith in my knowledge, or when I start dorking out about this or that, or you start dorking about quilts, like people just all of a sudden like, oh, this guy knows the stuff, and it's so much easier to sell yourself from that versus copy or a video or something. Plus, there's that whole thing, like you said, face to face. Me and my cousin used to do a podcast over the, because your faces are on camera if you do a video podcast, but there's something different about having somebody at a table, looking at them in the eyes.
Right.
The face has so much information that it shares.
Right.
Like it's designed, like we're designed to
Our,
read
our
faces.
brains need this.
Yeah.
Like
this
literally
is
need it.
How you get connection is two faces in the same room together talking, and I can read where your intents are and everything.
Right.
It's just so much more natural than video.
Yep.
I've always said face-to-face networking communication first, second video. I think that's still huge because people can watch you not live, but watch you and still get a sense of who you are from video. you
Yeah.
know?
Well, that's why podcasts are so fun to me, because if you'll notice, for those of you that are looking at this table, what do you not see on the table?
Mm-hmm.
Our phones.
Right.
Right? We're plugged in. We're disconnected. We're unplugged,
Right.
not plugged in. We're plugged into each other.
Mine's
right?
been vibrating under my ass.
Dude, mine has
the whole
too.
time,
I
but-
just stopped the notification. I meant to turn mine on do not disturb. But the point is that think about how long we've sat here and had this conversation and talked to each other and looked each other in the eyes. Like that's so rare in society today. Like so rare. I can't tell you the last. I mean, obviously, yes, doing the podcast. That's why I like doing the podcast so much, and A, and B, doing it in person, because I get to have conversations with people, all the people at HankCon. I did 10 podcasts in 2 days. And all those people that I got to talk to, I would have never had that lengthy of a conversation with any of them in
Right.
any other circumstance.
Yeah.
It just
Especially
wouldn't
when you
happen.
put the headphones on. It's just like, I mean,
You're
in
locked
HankCon,
in.
there's a lot going on. You guys are kind of closed off, but it doesn't matter. When you put the headphones on and you get the mics, like it's almost like a hyper. There's a couple people I know that are hard at hearing that I've been wanting to just get on the podcast just so I feel like I can finally have a good conversation with them.
Right.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
I know a couple like older like business owners. I'm
Yeah.
like it'd be great to have them on because I feel like a podcast is perfect for them.
Turn their headphones all the way up.
Yeah,
so-
because they're like half deaf. So like
Yeah.
this will be like the first like real conversation they've had with somebody in a long time.
Yeah. No, honestly, though, it makes a big difference. I mean, there's a lot of bigger influencers out there that do talk about the power of putting your phone down, unplugging, whether it's with your family or, just going out to dinner with a friend or whatever.
Right.
Like, put your phones away. Like, you're there with them. Why do you need to be with somebody else right now?
Right.
Like, you carved this time out to be with this person. You don't need to go talk to the other 6 people that
Right.
you're not hanging out with.
Yeah,
Like, they can
we're,
wait.
We're communal beings, and as much as we think that our phones are connecting us with each other, it's not the same kind of
It's pulling us
connection
out of
that
reality.
we're wired for.
Yeah,
We're wired for, connectivity with each other and like tribal or community.
body
That's why,
language. Yeah.
like I was saying earlier, about a big part of being successful in business is finding a community you actually care to serve. I mean, obviously there's those services that aren't, there's not like a, if you're doing trash pickup, you're serving like a bunch of different community. It's like a little different for or fertilizing lawns or something. But you still care about those customers, and you're solving a huge problem for them. And
Right.
you liked it enough to dork out and get good at it. So I'm reading this book right now called like Business Secrets from the Bible, and it's written by this Rabbi. Marla recommended it. She really liked it. So, but he's pointing out some really interesting stuff like. Like how we were talking earlier about
I
not wanting to
guarantee
give.
you I know everything that you're going to reference.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because you used to be a pastor, right?
Plus studied apologetics quite extensively. But yes, my point was that
Yeah. So
I
he was talking
know.
about like the Jewish community, how we were talking about how we don't want to let go of things, we'll just do everything ourselves or whatever. And like I still cut my own lawn and still do stuff, but he's like, if you look at the Jewish community, they don't cut their own lawns or work on their own cars. Because they realize that it's better
I must be
for
Jewish.
each different person to have their expertise, like the community as a whole,
Yeah.
versus one person being good at everything or whatever. The community is most served by everybody having a different
Right.
expertise.
Yep.
So that's why, and then you also know that by me not doing it and supporting their business or what they do, it makes the community stronger.
Plus it frees up your time as a business owner
Right.
to work on money making activities, because mowing your lawn is not
to
a money.
be better at your thing that you do for the
Right.
community.
Exactly.
Right. Like it's just like such a obvious thing, when you step back and think
Well,
about
hopefully we're going to help some of you guys stop mowing your own lawns. I don't care if you can't afford it. Just stop doing it.
it. My issue was I couldn't find a quality, like reliable person in like Grass Lake. Like one person like changed their number every year, so I called, be like, you can come on. I was gonna call and see like, are you gonna come on this year? Number changed. So it's like no communication.
I do.
So I have a rider now. I cut my own.
I do
lawn.
have a confession, Mike. I do mow my own lawn still.
But I like to not do that.
But I have a much bigger yard than you, and it takes me. Have you been to my house?
Yeah. Then.
Yeah. I enjoy it because, especially in the summertime, we have an in-ground pool, so like I'll mow in my swimming shorts so that I can just jump in the pool throughout mowing. But
Same.
it's my one time to really just like have my meditation time.
Yeah.
And so
I kind of like it too.
I really enjoy that aspect of it. Now, it's not always going to be able to be that way because as, my kids get older and the business continues to grow, like time's going to continue to become more valuable. But right now, like I enjoy that. I maintain my own pool. Like I'm not I'm not that rich yet. But for me, it's the meditation side of it that I really like. Yeah. And I don't even put headphones in. I put my noise canceling because it's so, again, one of those things. It's so rare to even exist in your own head anymore. Like how most of the time we lay down in bed, and if we're not watching TV, we're on our phones.
Right.
And then, depending
podcast in the background,
depending
YouTube
on
in the background while you're doing dishes.
There's so many people nowadays that have to have melatonin or edibles or something to help them fall asleep because they're so used to just being like in this really alert state right before bed, and they have to wait until their thing kicks in before they can shut their phone off and try to fall asleep.
You've been playing the slot machine all day, basically.
Yeah.
That's what social media is.
So for me, like
slot machine.
Brittany doesn't like the TV being on at night, and I do. I like having the TV on, but for different reasons. Like for me, I will stay awake for hours thinking about the business, thinking about how I'm as a father, like just all kinds of things, mostly business. And in fact, the window between when I shut my phone off or the TV off to when I actually fall asleep, almost every idea I've ever had, whether it's new products or new innovations or whatever the case is, come to me in those moments when I'm in solitude, like in my own head, where it's totally quiet and I'm letting my thoughts wander, letting that creative juice kind of start flowing. You don't get that if you don't unplug. You just don't get it. And I think that's one advantage that, sets one person apart from another is their ability to discipline themselves long enough to unplug, to exist in their own headspace, and not only exist in their own headspace, but be comfortable to thrive in their own head. Because how many people can just sit there in silence alone for hours on end and be okay with it?
Like when you're younger, I remember it would be, you'd wake up maybe thinking about something and you'd be working, and it's just like, instead of a podcast, it was just a conversation in your head with yourself about this one idea. And it might be the same idea all day. Or maybe 2 to 3 ideas, which is nothing. Now you get on the internet and it's like every scroll is a new wormhole. And you might dive in, but you're only diving in for like 10 minutes and then you go into something else. Like it's just so ADHD, like kind of like chasing the shiny dopamine hits versus, and I've done that a lot too. Like now when I drive into work, I purposely don't put on, because I'm caffeinated too, so my brain's kicking. I'm starting to sip on my coffee. I just had a workout, so I'm pretty wired, and I just purposely don't put anything on the whole drive to work. And I think about what the biggest things I could do that day are, and kind of like plan my day from a level place.
Self-growth.
I
thinking about self-growth
on what I want to do versus just putting something on to. Well, and another hack, I mentioned this on Tony's podcast, but it's an odd one. But
every time you bring up somebody else that you've done a podcast with, Mike, it's making me more upset.
But like sometimes even binge watching some stupid show for me is like a lower RPMs than what happens if I don't have that. You know what I'm saying? Because if you just open up Facebook, it doesn't matter if you open it up to check on your business, because I have to have Facebook. If I wasn't in marketing, I probably wouldn't even have it. I would probably just, or like, I'm sure you're probably the same way. You probably just, any business is going to have the social medias, and then you just log in to check your business notification, and then next thing you know, you're on the freaking stories watching clips for 20 minutes,
or longer.
But like I'll binge watch a show, and it's like that doesn't take, especially if it's a stupid show. Like I was watching Gold Rush with the gold miners.
Dude, me too. Just recently, I just watched. There's only 2 seasons.
And
what the
heck?
heck?
It's so low RPMs. Like you don't feel like you're ever missing anything. It's not like I'm watching Lord of the Rings or
If you, it's one of those shows I'll walk out without pausing.
Game of Thrones. It's like I'm not gonna miss anything. Yeah, but it's keeping me. So it's like low RPMs. I'm still kind of thinking while I'm watching it, and by the end of the day, I haven't even reached my 15-minute limit on Facebook because I've just been.
Well, and people hear that term meditation and they get all weird and think it's like sitting like this and doing your hums and ha's, and it's like no, meditation is the ability to exist in your own head and channel your thoughts into something productive and positive, whether it's self-growth or creative space or whatever it is. Like allowing yourself that time to exist in your own being, because if you're not surrounded by people that are constantly holding you accountable and giving you constructive criticism, like a lot of people, especially from the pandemic, exist, like you said, in their own bubbles. And when I hear bubbles, I even take it one step further and go within your person. Like you exist in your own bubble, that which exists inside your family bubble, which exists inside your community bubble, and so on. And so it's so easy to go extended periods of time, an entire lifetime, without actually just existing in that quiet place of, man, what did I get accomplished yesterday? Or what did I do yesterday that I want to do better today?
I think what you're speaking on too is like something I've thought about a lot too, is like your relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
Like, so just like you know that you need to have dates with your wife, and you have to you have to, set up, situations where you and your wife can stay connected.
Right.
Goof off together. Remind yourselves of why you love each other. Go on dates with other people and see them in other situations. Like you have to think about that. Same thing with as an individual. Like sometimes you got to get alone. Like my system's always like I go up and I'll edit a video, work on something, and then after that I'm almost like in a flow state, and then I kind of pace around and I'm thinking about, like you said, my decisions of that day, my decisions of the week, my family, my business, and like I have a good relationship with myself, because I spend that alone time with myself, quality time with myself, to understand, and now I don't beat myself up as much as I did when I was younger, which is, I think you kind of shed that as you get older. Yeah. And now it's starting to become more more progress is being made.
It's like one of those things where if people are constantly giving you feedback about your character and it sounds foreign to you, you need to take more time to meditate.
Yeah, you got to know yourself better.
You need to take more time.
If you have a good relationship with yourself, you're a fortress. No one's going to come in there and tell you something, and you know what I'm saying? Because also people don't pay attention to what you're doing. When you're young, you think everyone's watching everything you do. You think you're the center of the universe, right? You get older, you realize like, oh, nobody really cares what the hell I'm doing,
right?
And if somebody wants to come in every once in a while and judge you, you just kind of laugh because you're like, you don't like. I feel like I know myself pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. Self-awareness is, again, a dying, I don't want to call it an art, but I guess it feels more like an art because it's dying and it's more rare, but it's super valuable to have even a baseline level of self-awareness where it's like, I'm kind of a prideful person and it's only taken me this many years to realize it, and decades of people telling me. The second that I looked inward and was like, am I this way? And then it was like, yeah, you are. I was like, oh, I guess I should have did this a long time ago.
So we don't have to dive too deep into it, but I know, like, similar to me, I think when we were both younger, it was like we were kind of like shitheads, made bad decisions, we can leave it at that. We don't have to go into details, but I know your path's like you kind of, and maybe that's just the normal path for people that are hyperactive brains, like you just,
my 8-year-old,
you're picking it apart and you're going crazy, and you
10 times more hyperactive than I was.
Yeah.
So hopefully he's going to be the next Elon Musk or something.
Yeah. But it sucks that you got to go through. Like I put my dad through hell.
Yeah.
When I was younger.
Well, and in all fairness, before my parents got divorced when I was 8 or 9, I don't remember when it was, but I was actually the quietest kid around. Like I was the kid that all the teachers would always tell my parents, like, we don't know what it is. He literally just like sits in a corner and he just observes everyone around him. Like that's all he does is just scan the room.
I think I would still label myself an introvert, and definitely when I was younger even more. So.
And then it wasn't until, life experiences and circumstances and things kind of develop different sides of me. But I think, I look at like my 8-year-old and I would categorize him as very hyperactive, and he's got a very overactive imagination, and like he can get triggered by things like to a degree that is just well beyond like the normal range. And I don't know if I was that way as a kid, but definitely as in all honesty, Mike, it wasn't until I went through rehab at 18 that I really learned anything about myself. And it was through that process, I went for 13 months, and within the first 6 months, they made me the head of the entire education department. I mean, you're talking to a guy that didn't graduate high school. I didn't have any college education, obviously. And as a student in the program, they gave me my own office on the staff level 6 months into the program, and I was running the entire education department. And I also did intake, all new people coming in. I did their whole education intake, and like it was.
Do you think that was them like channeling your energy, or do you think it was like you like finding something that you had faith in to devote to actually give like your full potential to? That was like one of your first like shines of, or like times of seeing like, oh wow, like obviously you put your full potential into it. You like impressed them and elevated yourself. Was that like one of the first experiences you had of like,
definitely,
this is what I'm capable of if I find things that actually
so
attract me?
it was one of those things where, you know, I had said earlier, you know, that I never did any homework, but I got A's on all my tests. Well, it was nothing that I ever thought about at the time, and it wasn't until going through this program, and it was a subject that I was passionate about, and all of a sudden everything just clicked, and it was like, you know, in school I didn't give a crap about anything. I was, you know, into drugs and fighting, and like that's all I knew. And in this program, it was something that I was passionate about for the first time, and like being sober for the first time, dude, probably since I was 11.
Right.
Like, in all honesty, like I lived so many years up to that point already of in like this alternate reality, and like living this other version of me that wasn't really me. It was like this part that was just like, again, not me, because of just the way that my life unfolded. And in the program, dude, I just like flew through everything. Like everything that I did, it was like, it just came so easy and so natural. And they were the ones that noticed it in me. It was not like, it didn't feel like any additional effort was being put on my part. It was just like, it just came, like I saw it in my head so clearly, and it was just like, yeah, this makes sense.
Plus,
And
you're getting that clarity, which is new to you.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
So was that program tied to religious teachings, which kind of led you into the youth pastor?
the only program
roles?
you'll find that's 13 months long is the religious one.
Yeah. Well, AAA. Was it AA? Isn't that like that's backed by the church, right? Isn't it like
Maybe the Catholic Church, I don't know, but most of those programs are only 90 days anyways.
Wow.
As a max. So the program I went into was founded back in the 70s, and it was called Teen Challenge. And basically the idea behind the program was taking these troubled kids off the streets of New York, teenagers pretty much exclusively, and putting them in this program and teaching them the Word of God and like helping them. But it was what was unique about Teen Challenge is that it was not focused on just putting you in church and like reading the Bible to you.
Right.
It was focused, like all the courses,
your struggle that you're going through now.
all the courses that we
what
went
you
through were, the subjects were like, attitudes and how to deal with them, and like just like so many life application things that none of us had ever really learned. And Teen Challenge evolved over the years to where when the program I went into in Lansing, they had 50 people enrolled in the program, ranging from 17 all the way up to 80 something. And it was a wide, and most of them were from like Chicago, people that were court ordered, you know, from whatever various reasons. And I was a volunteer in the program, mostly because I was homeless and didn't have anywhere else to go. So it was the best option for me at the time. But that program literally changed my life, more so, and I don't want to get too much in the religious side of it, but more so because it allowed me to see me for the first time. It allowed me to really understand, like, oh, you do have an identity, you do have skills, and you do have things that you're good at that I just never knew, because my whole life was like the only thing I was good at was fighting. Like that was it. That was the only thing I knew that I was good at. And it was through that whole process I realized, like, man, now that I think about it, like I did get A's on all my tests. How did I do that? Like I never did any homework. It was just from like the information being in the same room as me. Like my brain just absorbed it. And so as I got out of the program and I met Brittany and we started having kids, and it was the same thing in every job I worked at. Like it just came natural. Like I just always excelled at every job I went to. And I had set up myself early on, like, I'm never going to take a job that pays less than the one I had before.
Right.
And if I go backwards, then I'm doing something wrong. And so I adopted the mindset that whatever job I go into, I'm going to be the hardest, baddest MFer. You've said the F word on here, but in case my kids hear this, I'm not going to say it. In this entire company. Like I'm going to work harder than the CEO. I'm going to work harder than everybody.
But you also
here.
just naturally pick things apart to a level where, you know, and I learned that when I used to do landscaping, because I like you, I used to assume that everybody kind of worked the same way as me, or thought the same way as me. And then when I got one of my first jobs as a landscaper, we had a lot of kids come in each summer, a different batch of kids would come in, or they try to move them to the landscaping crew. And you just realize, like, oh, not everybody has this. Like I have to ask them to hand me the shovel every time. They don't understand they don't not recognizing the pattern. They're just there. You know, it's not a common thing. But I think a lot of what you experience there too is, as I think about this a lot, is we don't study the human struggle anymore, like as a society. You know, like we don't take kids because they go through so much. You know, I'm seeing it now with my kids getting older. It's like, but you feel so powerless. You know, you can give little lessons, but you're also the parent, so they don't want to listen to you.
Right.
But like back in Eastern philosophy, they study the human struggle, and all the religions do. They all say the same stuff. They might name people different,
Right.
but they're all talking about the human struggle. And it used to be a science, and it used to be a taught science. Now it's like we want to ignore it, like it doesn't exist. Like we all don't have the same struggles.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But we do. And when somebody pulls you aside and starts talking to you, reading scripture or reading from Bhagavad Gita or anything like that, and they share like, oh no, what you're going through is not unique to you. You're not broken. You're not, like this is part of the human struggle, and this is also how you find fulfillment in life, which is serving others, community, family.
I'm 100% dead set on the meaning of life in terms of philosophy boils down to loving yourself first. Obviously this was Jesus's philosophy, and I think he nailed it perfectly. Because even though I'm not associated with a religion, I do listen to a lot of philosophy, and again, another podcast for that, Mike.
Next time we'll have you in a different outfit, a whole different podcast.
But it's what was I just getting ready to say? I don't even know. I lost my train of thought.
That happens.
The struggle's real.
So you don't relate to a specific or subscribe to a specific one, but
back to what Jesus was saying. See, that's what I have you here for. About loving yourself and loving people. And I was just talking to Brittany about this the other night because I kind of had like a mental breakdown for the first time in a long time. And I'm honestly convinced, I don't think my kids have ever seen me cry. The other night I was laying in bed, and all of a sudden it just hit me. And I don't know what caused it or why it happened, but I'm really thankful it did. And it was just like, all of a sudden I had all these reflections about why, like myself, when I was the happiest, and since I've lost that side of myself, we'll say, how differently I've been with my kids, with my wife. So a real quick story. I left the church about 5 years ago. I didn't come up to that decision lightly. It basically, for those of you that don't know, I was studying apologetics. Apologetics is basically the defense of something. When you put Christian in front of it, it's basically the defense of the Christian faith. And so I was studying apologetics of the Christian faith, and my goal was to set out to prove Christianity beyond the shadow of a doubt. And through that process of years, I came to a different conclusion. Again, different podcast. But through the whole process of walking away from the church, and losing all of my closest friends and family because they pretty much all disowned me, because I was a strong leader in our church, and all the circles that I was in, I was a part of multiple Bible studies, and I led most of them. I taught in our church, taught Sunday school, like all that.
Right.
And one of the things that I was reflecting on the other night was like, man, when I was the happiest in my entire life was not when I was preaching or not when I was, reading the Bible. It was when I was serving people, and serving people from a pure heart.
Right.
And, like I was the first guy, if I saw a car, a guy out pushing his car broke down, like I was the first person to stop and help him push it. It didn't matter if it was 5 miles. Like, dude, I'm here. I got you. Like, you're in this by yourself. You got no one. I'll be that for you.
Right.
Or just whatever it was. It didn't matter. Like if it was something that was outside of myself, like just doing those selfless acts of love for total strangers, like going into a gas station. Hey, how's your day going? Oh, it's going. Well, what do you mean? What do you mean it's going?
Just being
like,
the light.
You're not happy. Like, why aren't you happy? Like, and then just like starting those conversations and be talking to people for 2 hours at the gas station. Like, this guy is crazy. What's wrong with him?
Yeah.
But for me, it was like, those were the most fulfilling years of my life. And, I've experienced a lot in life. I've had a lot of money. I've had a lot of different things, and nothing has ever satisfied me even remotely to the degree of understanding that I have to love myself first before I can love anyone else truly. And once I can love myself fully, being able to share that and extend that to the people around me, dude, there's nothing greater. There really isn't.
And something that's really tangible. We were talking about earlier about podcasts over Zoom or something versus podcasts in real life. Like when you stop and help somebody on the side of the road, that's very, versus selling a quilt Like you might see that person at a thing and they'll be like, oh, I love that stuff so good and it makes me feel good. But there's an attachment there. Like at the end of the day, the only way to really get that like in service thing is like within your community in some kind of way too.
Yeah.
Like you got to have that aspect too, because it's way more tangible than
looking for
selling online or something. But
at every event, I always look for opportunities for that one person that's like miserable, they're cold or whatever. Like, take this,
right?
Go, you have it.
I see that. I think you have like some of the most expensive gear probably, but also you've probably given away more gear than a lot of.
I guarantee you have given more away than most. But it's like you said earlier, like. Running a business, most people go into it to make money. For me, it's about life in general. Like running this business is not just about making money. It's about all the experiences I can have that are encompassed through running this business and the resources that I have. So being able to bring my family there, being able to be in a position where I can be generous, and all these other extra things that come along with running a business, let alone a successful business, far outweigh any amount of money I could put in my bank. In fact, anytime we have money in our bank, almost always, once we get past a certain threshold, it gets given away, because we've kind of looked at that and gone, that's excess to us. Like we live modest lifestyles. Like, how we live modest lifestyles. And yes, I like to buy things and whatever, but we try to do our best to truly understand that we've had so many people be there for us in our time of need. How dare I hang on to excess when I can look around and see so many people in need? And it's
so your little breakdown the other day or whatever, that was kind of like you felt like you were falling off of that a little bit, like focusing on the business.
So I was reflecting back on basically the last 5 years of when I made the decision to walk away from the church, and like. It's all I knew. Like I grew up in the church, and then I went to this Christian-based rehab. And
so you kind of realizing that you need to bring back some more of that tangible service.
That aspect of it, but it was the last 5 years of trying to figure out who I am and like what my identity is now. And it's like, yeah, you're a father and you're this and you're that, but for most people, it's not enough. Like it's not enough to just like give yourself titles. You have to really like ground your title into something deeper than than yourself. And for me, it's like when I was reflecting on the last 5 years and like the amount of times that I just felt depressed.
You couldn't pull over to the side of the road because you were on your way to a meeting or something. And
or I was too stuck in my own
to even
head,
see
or I was too
need.
depressed, or I was too whatever. Like I just so many things that I lost sight of. And
I've had times where I've like broke down just seeing people in certain places and feeling like, oh, I'm like a brother to this person. Like I should be the one. I should be able to find the time to help them through this. Like
same.
And it's like because like you said about accountability. Well, that doesn't stop at okay. Well, my family's taking care of it, whatever. You take accountability for everything.
Right.
Like you want to be like I'm capable of helping this person. I'm capable. Like and sometimes that weight of knowing that you're capable of things and you're not. It's like should I. Like, I think I have more to give if I just figure this out, And
that ties back into letting yourself down.
Yeah.
If you know that you can help somebody and you choose not to, dude, the psychological impact that has on you for weeks, months, years, potentially is not worth it. Like, just if you feel that inclination to do something that you can look at and go, there's nothing unethical about it. And in fact, the only thing I can find regarding this decision is positive. Chances are good it's what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
But what did it for me was in the last let's just say in the last 3 years, my two youngest boys, we always had a very tight knit family. My kids all got along. Everywhere we would go, people would tell us how amazing our kids are and on and on. Yeah. And in the last few years, my two youngest have developed a really awful relationship with each other. And my response as a father has been, to kind of overpower and be like, no, stop, this isn't what we're doing, and be kind of like that more authoritative figure in their life, which historically I was always the guy that would get down on my knee and I would bring them in, and it's like, let's learn the life lessons from this. Let's figure out how we can navigate this. And like the amount of distraction that I've had in my life and taking on the business and walking away from religion and losing all the people that it just put me into a really weird space for years.
Right.
And the two boys came in the room and were just like going at each other, yelling. They both came down there for help. And my instinct was to be like, both of you go to your rooms. Like,
right. Separate.
You know,
easiest solution.
Right.
Right.
And as they were yelling at each other, it was like this euphoric moment, I guess I'll describe it as, of just, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Like, people can look at me all day long and go, man, that guy's got a great life and successful and this and that. And it's like, if you only knew, it's so easy. And that's one of my biggest experiences with like serving people. You can look at the exterior and somebody can be walking down the hallway smiling and be the most broken person in that space. And it's like, you don't know that until you have this interpersonal relationship, this conversation. And in most cases, it requires a slightly more radical approach to really draw it out of people, which is what I love to do. I like to be radical with people. When I was working for Dish Network, I would go into people's houses and it was a job that was supposed to be an hour. I would be there until 7 p.m. and Brittany would be calling me like, where are you at? And I'm like, listen, this guy needed me today.
Right.
Like, I canceled all my other jobs. This guy needed me. He was broken and he needed somebody to hold him accountable and pick him up and put him on the right path.
And there's even more and more of that with the isolation that we talked about. You know, like
big time.
I come across it. I mean, and even myself, it's very easy. I mean, I think I get along fine in social settings because, like you said, I have that self-confidence. I kind of know myself, but I'm really kind of an introvert. I want to be just hacking away at something in my studio or whatever. Yeah. The big part about this podcast was, you know, I watched an episode of Theo Vaughn and Joe Rogan. And Theo Vaughn's like in his own little head, and he's like, "I'm sorry, man, I'm being kind of weird." He's like, "Man, you do this every time you spend too much time away from us. You know, like, you know, you can't spend too much time alone. You know, because whenever I hang out with people, like have a good conversation, like we're having now, or whatever, it's like, yeah, you're good. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like self-validating. You know, like the isolation is sometimes is bad thing. So a big part about this podcast too is like, oh, people can drive to me and talk and have a beer and
I'll go
like
months without hanging out with a friend.
Yeah.
Like, or
and it's
year.
not really healthy.
No, it's not.
And sometimes you come across people that you could tell needed a friend.
Yeah.
And you're like, you know, and you also just click, and there's never really bad interactions with people because every individual is just like, you know, I love that view of it's you living another life.
Yeah.
If you would have, you know, if his mother was your mother, you'd probably be exactly like him. You know, we're past the whole time. Like, I think our parents are kind of in that space of like, oh, this kid was just born with a little bit more evil in him. Yeah. Like we're not in that space no more. Right. We're not like, oh, this, you know, this kid's Christ-like. This kid is born with evil. No, we're victims of our circumstances.
We definitely evolved from those times.
Yeah. We're a victim of our circumstances, and we're shaped by our circumstances. You know, like one of the darkest moments.
But on the same token, we have the power to change that.
Right. And that's the whole thing is like forward because you feel the pull and you got to pay attention to the pull because it's weird. And that's why you can't really direct somebody else's life because, you know, the current of their life might be pulling them here. And you might be like, no, if you want to make money, go here. Like, but you can't weigh in on that because they might have to go and zigzag a few times. And who knows how all those skills are going to accumulate to make them hugely successful. Yeah. You know, like you have to follow the current of your own life, the pull, you know, whether it's God's will that's pulling you, or it's the universe, or it's you know, whatever.
That's why that quiet place of self-reflection is so important.
Very important because only you can choose your path and choose the right path, and that's we all have to be here to respect it and not judge people because that's you just living a different life. I always like that philosophy of looking at people because when you actually talk to anybody face to face, you get along with them. No one's a piece of shit. That's only on the internet. You know, when they try to divide us. And
yes, I will agree for the most part. But you know, like when I was in Teen Challenge, I actually found my home, so to speak, with the homeless community. Mm-hmm. You know, I when I say I was homeless, it was like for 2 weeks, so it doesn't really count. It's like a camping trip, but you know, it was more than just relating to them because it was like, you know, hey, I've been in your shoes. Mm-hmm. For 2 weeks doesn't really count. What you learn is that everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a story, and most of them are very willing to tell that story to whoever will listen. And you know, nowadays it's tricky because there are so many people standing on street corners that are not homeless, and unfortunately that's taken away massively from how people view the homeless community. Because I will tell you right now that anyone that's truly homeless that I've ever met was not standing on a street corner.
Yeah.
Just wasn't doing it. When through that program, I did a homeless ministry, and I was with them multiple times a week for hours and hours and hours on end. And I would find the dirtiest, nastiest, grossest looking person around that nobody would talk to, even though all their homeless people didn't go around because they were that bad.
Yeah.
And I would literally go sit, I would beeline to that person. I would find him. I'd sit down next to him. I'd put my arm around him and be like, tell me your story.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just sit there and listen. Dude, and the stories that people would tell me were just like insane. Like
Yeah.
how their life led up to this point. And what you find is that just like with famous people, most of it, they're just real people. And the second that you actually take the time to get to know them, you realize like, dude, you're such an a-hole yourself for judging that person.
Because you want other people that are different. You want to be like, oh, they're other, like, and then that way you're absolved to even trying to understand them.
Yeah.
Right. But when you hear their story, then you get back to that whole like, he's no different than me. And, and his path is a path that I'm very likely to have followed if I had been born in his shoes. You know, like it's a very human experience.
And sometimes all they need is for somebody to show that they care.
Right.
And that's why I have so much respect for homeless ministries, because, it's like it's easy to preach to, well-off people, middle class and whatever, because it's like that's who most of our churches are filled with, is the middle class. But Jesus didn't give two craps about those people.
Right.
Like, I mean, he did, but who did he go after? The worst of the worst in society. Like, that's who he gravitated towards. And it's like, how have we gotten so far off track where Christianity specifically is concerned? I'm not going to speak to
and through the capitalism and all the stuff that has made the middle class successful and the people that are high up there successful, we created a lot of ruts and a lot of traps that hook
the
people,
rich get
that
richer
hook people
and
on
the poor get
pharmaceuticals, that hook people on sugar, that hook people on this, on that. Like, that's all part of that, you know what I'm saying? So like now we have more traps than ever and less understanding than ever. Yeah. So it's like just a bad mix.
Yeah. It's definitely a challenge.
But man, I think we're my census says we're getting close to our minute 20, and I got to take a tinkle. But that was a good one, man. I appreciate you coming on.
It was more in depth than I thought we were going to go.
I like
based
that.
on how my podcasts go.
Yeah, I definitely like getting in depth about business and mindsets, because I think like so many people could value from like understanding, like we were just talking about, diving in stories, philosophies, morals. Like so much of that is involved in business, and I want people to listen and jack into different people's heads.
Yeah,
take some value.
You'll see a shift in my podcast since my night with the kids the other night, which I didn't even finish that story, but whatever, we can cover that another time. Where I'm ready to get back to some of my roots in regards to those interpersonal conversations and relationships, and be amazed how fast you can turn somebody's life around.
And just combining your experiences, so it's combining what you did with the church, with now the podcasts, and what you want to do with the community about bringing them together through the podcast. I think there's a lot of connecting things that I can.
Yep. And for all 6 of you watching right now,
I think we're up to 8 now.
For all 8 of you watching right now, UGQ Outdoor Podcast.
Check them out. It sounds like it's going to get really good here soon.
It's already good, Mike. It's going to get better.
I know that those 10, I feel like you got it. Like, you're going to come out of those 10 way better than you were going in, because you did 10 podcasts in like 2 days. So I feel like you definitely knocked the dirt off, or whatever the expression you want to use.
Yeah, because I went several months without filming a podcast, so it was due.
And you have a harder... I feel like eventually I'll catch up with you, because I just have it easy, because I'm going for people in Michigan that are driving to the center of Michigan.
Yeah, I have to fly my guests in, so...
So you need, or just go keep going to more festivals and lining them up.
Well, yeah, that'll definitely happen, but for all the time in between.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we'll pull some of your viewers in and we'll get it 12 or 20, we'll see what happens.
Oh, I need this footage because I want to post this on my channels.
Yeah, I'll give you some clips. But thanks for coming on, man.
All right, man. It sounds
Appreciate
good.
you.